Hey guys, LunarLemon here, and welcome to part 3 out of 6 of my GD level commentary series. Now, as you probably know, the first two parts had 7 levels each, but this part will have 9 levels instead. I didn't split these up evenly for a reason. I just felt that some parts would have ended weirdly, talking about some levels but not others. At least in my head. I'm not really sure how to explain it. But yeah, this part will go from the latter half of summer of 2017, and we will be ending off in January of 2018. So whatever 2017 levels haven't been shown already will be in this video. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy. The first level we will be talking about in this part is Matter. This level has no relation to the It's a Matter of Time series, despite the potentially somewhat deceptive title. Ironically though, just like Next Matter of Time, this level has a ton of copy-paste, but even more so. This wasn't really supposed to be much of a major level. Even to this day, every now and then, I'll just make something really small, and quickly, and just upload it. This is one of those levels, except I didn't even really like it at the time. The copy and paste just feels lazy, and more so in terms of the decoration than the gameplay, but even still, the gameplay's not particularly interesting either. There were also some errors in the level, which they have since been fixed. At 15%, the background used to be cut off at on the left side. I fixed it in 2.2, and I noticed it for years, but I didn't do anything about it, and I have no idea why. And then the cube part at 29%, the bright green color used to be a dark green, but I thought it was too hard to see, but even now it's still pretty hard to see. I don't know how I didn't realize it at the time, at least I don't think I realized it, that the background fire thing and the spikes use the same shades of green, and that's kind of why it's hard to see. So, if I change one of the colors, I'm changing both of them, unless I, change the color ID for one of them, which I don't know why I just didn't do. This is generally just a super uninteresting level. Something else I didn't fix until 2.2 for some reason that I did notice for a long time is that the decoration on the spikes at the bottom, at the 70% UFO, that is a mouthful. The decoration was actually in the wrong spot, so the decoration was a block above the spikes, which was a very obvious error, and I didn't do anything about it, and I couldn't tell you why. Ironically, that UFO part is probably one of the few parts in the level, or probably one of the only parts in the level that I actually kinda like. Even though it's incredibly empty, I do like the idea of it mostly being bright gray, and then there's the pulsing circle things that change colors. So it's kinda monochrome, but adds another color on top of it. But there's not really much else to say about Matter, so we can just move on.
Mom was so stupid! She thought Epic Party 2 was a real party!
The next level we'll be talking about is Epic Party 2, created by the now defunct Boycats collab team. This is the only level that was actually made by Boycats collab team. There was another planned level, but we never actually started it. I don't remember anything about it, but we're not here to talk about a level that doesn't exist, we're here to talk about Epic Party 2. And there's definitely some stuff to talk about here. It definitely isn't as interesting as the first level, at least quality-wise. Now, it's still interesting to talk about, and you'll see why. This is one of my shortest levels that was ever made. And, ironically, like I implied already, it is a collab between me, Peyton, That Guy Desedui, and Pixel the One. Not in that order. My part is actually probably the least interesting, and frankly has nothing really worth mentioning. So, once we get to 22%, You're at a ship part made by that guy Decidueye, and there's a yellow orb that says hold. And when you click the yellow orb, which, fun fact, is technically optional, you'll see text appear that says Boycat is triggered, and I can explain what this means. Around this time, I was frequently talking about how much I hate when orbs are in ship parts of levels. And, like, I've grown more tolerant of them over time. I honestly, admittedly, I still don't really like them. I really just don't like orbs in ship parts. It's not as big of a deal when it's like, you know, they make the orbs bigger or the timings are lenient. Generally, though, I just find a lot of orbs, especially green orbs in ship parts, to be incredibly annoying. Green orbs, black orbs. Like, yellow orbs and red orbs are usually fine. Pink orbs just feel pointless. Black orbs are annoying to time correctly with the ship parts. Blue orbs... depends. I think I just have some unresolved trauma. Green orbs are just fucking stupid in ship parts. Like, you're actually insane if you do that. Then again, I have done that too, but that's not important. Spider orbs I don't think I've actually seen in ship parts, but I'm not really sure. I guess that's really all there is to say about that guy Decidueye's part, other than the fact that there's a green monster that appears at 34%, which is an obvious reference to the first level. And then right after that, we enter Pixel the One's part, which, oh boy. You start out in a wave part with a ton of inverted slopes. And it sort of became joked about in the comments, and kind of became somewhat of an inside joke, because it's really just hideous and not fun to play. You got all these rainbow circles and apparently these monsters, which I actually never noticed before. And then you enter this UFO with fucking Gmod error-ass block design. Like, where are the textures? This doesn't... What the hell is this? And then there's a ship part with just a bunch of red-orange squares. And then you get hit by the hardest whiplash possible by entering Peyton's part, which was some of his best work at the time. And it's the last part of the level and gets overshadowed by this shit. Peyton, of course, actually fucking tried in his part. This was, like I just said, one of some of his best work at the time. Even better than, you know, some of his solo levels. He even said it himself at the time, I remember this. I did have to nerf it, though, because there used to be a bunch of gravity portals, in the ship part, but I wanted to remove them since it kind of, felt a bit unbalanced compared to the rest of the level, difficulty-wise. Specifically difficulty-wise. The gravity portals did have, like, these black gradient circles behind them, and I did have to remove those, too, because they just looked weird. However, I never removed one of them. There was one I accidentally left at 72, and to this day it's still there. I really don't think the level is worth updating for that singular thing, especially since, you know, unlike some of my other levels, there's not any bugs that make the level unfair due to, like, you know, physics changes and whatnot. But then Peyton's part ends at 91 and you're already met with the outro. And this level is so short. And at 97%, since a lot of my levels do end with, like, jump pads, there's a red jump pad that, you know, is supposed to, you know, have you launch into the end wall, except you actually hit the ground before you hit the end wall. And there is a reason for this. Somewhere in that area, I believe there's, like, some invisible block that's impossible to reach. And I did this because if I didn't, the level would be considered medium in length. And I just didn't really want that, especially given the fact that this was a 4-person collab. And just the overall duality between the individual parts of the level and even comparing this entire level to the first one, it's crazy. Like, it's so funny that we have this shit right before this part. And then, you know, the first two parts are kind of just whatever. But, like, what the fuck happened? It's so weird to just look at this level. Like, yeah, I'm glad Peyton tried on his part and all, but it just creates this crazy duality after whatever the fuck this part is. Like, I know I'm being a broken record here, but, like, holy shit, what am I supposed to say? And I guess that's really all there is to say about this level. Just, what is this? I'm gonna keep repeating myself if I don't end this section here. The next level we will be talking about is Metal Pounder, and this is another fun one to talk about for multiple reasons. So, at the time of this level being made and uploaded, the official Doom Gauntlet contest was still ongoing, and I definitely wasn't a talented creator enough to get a, you know, part in the Gauntlet, and I wasn't really expecting much of it or anything like that, but I just wanted to make something to fit with the theme anyway, just for the fun of it. I mean, that's what creating's all about, right? Well, that can be said for some people, but some people, I guess, take it too seriously. When I verified the level, I uploaded a video to my old channel, and people hated it so much that they left death threats in the comments. I'm not even kidding. This level was hated so much that I got death threats over it. And I had to unlist the verification video and disable the comments. And I never got that many views on most of my videos at the time. I remembered having like 1,700 views before I unlisted it. And people hated it so much. And like, yeah, it's not a particularly great level, but what the fuck? Also, even though the level is called Metal Pounder because the song is a remix of Metal Crusher from Undertale, I didn't really know what to name the level, and Peyton apparently suggested the name Metal Pounder as a joke. If I remember correctly, I asked him for some ideas for a name, and while thinking of names, his brother went up to him and told him that he was about to go, quote, pound his meat. But he didn't tell me that part until, like, way after the level was uploaded and whatnot. I didn't realize that it was, you know, a joke. I also, this isn't in my notes, but I also vaguely remember one time I was talking about the level in a VC in, like, 2018, and every now and then I would jokingly call the level Meat Pounder, partly because of that previous fact, and I almost referred to it as Meat Pounder as a joke, but, I said Metal Pounder. And good thing, because apparently my dad walked into my room without knocking when I did that. So I definitely got spared there. Not that he would have, like, done anything, but, you know. But let's talk about the level itself now. It's not particularly interesting, but there's definitely a few things worth mentioning. So at the UFO part at 17%, there are these two skulls that appear. There's one at 18% and another at 21%. And some people at the time told me they kind of look like Sans and Papyrus, which, honestly, not really. But I can see what they mean. But that was not intentional at all. Also, why does only one of them have a nose? I don't know. Honestly, looking back, I do like some of the gameplay gimmicks that I had going on in here. At least, you know, more so in the first half. Though, they definitely could have been executed better and probably put in a more deserving level. Like, for example, the spikes at 36%. For some reason, that jump might be possible to, like, jump over both spikes, but it probably isn't. But I think I assumed it was at the time. And, but you're not supposed to do that. Like, you're supposed to jump into the middle of it and grab that skull, otherwise you'll die. Also, I don't know why, but at the time, I thought that the moving block thing that I did at 51% at the ship part was, like, the coolest shit ever. I don't really know why. Also, looking back, this level is actually really inconsistent. But overall, it's just a pretty empty level that doesn't have much worth saying about. I think some of the aftermath and whatnot of the level is more interesting than the level itself. But yeah, if you don't like a level, don't send death threats. Just don't. Even if it's for like an official in-game contest, it's probably not going to make it into the level. Instead, we'll get levels like Update Disorder. God, I fucking hate that level. But yeah, I guess that's all there really is to say about Metal Pounder. Don't send death threats to people, kids. Don't do it. The next level we will be talking about is the Palace. This was supposed to be a bigger mega collab than it ended up being. Now, for the people in it, other than, myself, Peyton, and that guy Decidueye, the other creators for the level showed up through a similar way that Abzoid and Gyro showed up for It's a Matter of Time. I made an announcement level to recruit people, and 3 people, actually technically 4, ended up joining. So HD Hez, Pepe Orta, and XD37 came from the recruitment level. There was another creator who was planned to be a part of it, I believe named BaconBoy333 or something like that, but by the time it was time for him to make his part, he told me that he got busy with some life stuff and he couldn't make a part. Which was unfortunate, but, it is what it is. But, my first part is kind of ugly. Peyton's part is, it's whatever. That guy Decidueye's part is, like, the Chinese bootleg version of Peyton's part. HD Hez's part is really short, and I'll get back to that in a minute. Pepe Orta's part was kind of hard to sight read. And then XD37, his part's alright. And then I had another part after that before the end of the level, because I just wanted to make it a little longer. So for the first 3 parts, there's not a whole lot to really say, but let's talk about HD Hez. His part's right at the drop, and it's only about a second long. And I did later on find out why he had such a short part. I actually found him in a mutual Discord server once, later that year, and I recognized his username, he recognized me, and I was like, yeah, your part was only a second long. Turns out his part was so short because he thought the other parts from before his all sucked. And I mean, his isn't particularly great either, but that's kind of a harsh reason, but, it's whatever. After that was Pepe Orta, who I actually had to nerf his part pretty significantly. And communicating with him was actually pretty tough, because English wasn't his first language, he wasn't very fluent in it. And, I could, communicate with him enough to a point where, things got done. But for the most part, he was a Spanish speaker, so it was pretty difficult. And then after that is XD37, who, fun fact, later on ended up actually getting some creator points. He actually also invited me to a collab of his own at one point, and I did make a part, which probably wasn't very good, but it was cut from the level, because some miscommunication kind of caused me to make my part really unsynced. Basically with a lot of collabs, there'd be a teleport portal at the beginning, that just takes you as high up as you can go. Then there's, a speed portal, 4 times speed, and a ship portal, so you're just going through above the level. And that way you don't have to rebeat the level every single time you want to send it to the next person. And you were supposed to uncheck the speed portal if you wanted things to actually sync properly. And I was going to do that, but then I think he told me not to for some reason. So I didn't, and then I made my part, and then that killed the sync, as I expected. And he ended up just cutting my part from the level, but, it's whatever, it probably wasn't very good anyway. But yeah, he has some creator points now, so props to him. There was also a sequel to this level planned called The Castle, and only 2 parts were made. My first part was actually, compared to a lot of my work at the time, pretty good. And then my friend Keepy had a part in the level, but he wasn't really playing the game anymore at this point. So I asked him how his progress was on the level, on his part, after some time. And sometime not too long later, he ended up finishing it, and apparently all these years later, he still had his copy of the level, so he ended up sending that to me, and his part looked like this. Yeah, I'm not even gonna touch this one. The collab did end up getting canceled after some time later, and these were the only two parts that were made. So, some weird miscommunications and awkward gameplay is made, and the palace is born. It verified and uploaded and forgotten. And half the people who were in this one, I didn't even know. But you live and you learn, I guess. The next level we will be talking about is Frappuccino, which I don't have too much to say, but I tried doing a little more of like a flatter style for the level, and I thought the colorfulness of it was cool at the time, but nowadays it just kind of fucking hurts to look at. And because of that, and, that one transition, I was working on the level once, and my brother saw the colors reflecting off of my phone screen onto my face, and he suggested that I add an epilepsy warning. Also, the name of the level was suggested by my friend Erica, so yeah, that's cool. Other than the fact that this level is just kind of ugly, there's not a whole lot to say. Some did argue that it was my best work at the time. It's not, though. It wasn't. I was still improving significantly as a creator, so I guess it was one of my better levels, but the style is really inconsistent, and it just doesn't work the way I did it. There was also a Frappuccino 2 planned that was going to be dedicated to Erica, and it was going to use the same song, but it was going to use the second drop. I wasn't going to pull a Risers 2 on this one, I swear. This sequel did end up getting cancelled because I started running out of ideas for it at some point, and I think I just generally didn't really like it. But, there's not a whole lot to say about this level other than what's already been said. If you care about your vision, don't play it. Or at least when you get to the one transition, close your eyes. That's just my suggestion. The next level we will be talking about is Spooky Space, which was definitely one of my more difficult levels at the time. I would honestly say it was harder than Risers 2. The deco is pretty empty, and the gameplay is really awkward right from the get-go. The first 6% of the level and the first ship part were made by my cousin. I don't know, I remember bringing up the idea of making a collab with him. And, he didn't really play the game that much, but, I showed him a few things in the editor, and those were a few things that he made. And at the time, I couldn't really visit him all too often, so I ended up just making the rest of the level, but he didn't really mind. Now, I did add more decoration to his first part than what he originally had, which I guess isn't really saying much since the level is still pretty empty. It also doesn't really fit the space theme until one specific part way later, but then you get to the staircase at 9%, which is already part of my first part, and at the halfway point of it, this was actually an accident where the gap between the blocks is actually larger between, the halfway point, and like I just said, that was an accident, but I actually do still kind of like that I did that. It creates a sort of, trickery for the timing. I'm still used to timing the, entering the staircase pretty late. That way you don't have to, adjust your click afterwards, but if you time it too early, you will get punished for it. That is, unless you adjust your timing after the fourth block. Then there's the ship at 29%, which was made by my cousin, aside from the weird green lasers I added as decoration. During most of this part, you can actually just hold up and touch the ceiling for the part, and this was kind of supposed to be a secret between him and I, but I ended up verifying the level like that, and Yeah, I don't really know. I don't even think, like, once you get to 40% after this wall thing, which I'll talk about more in a sec, the blocks have spikes around them, and I don't even know if it's possible to get through some of them without just touching the ceiling. But yeah, about that wall I just mentioned. For some odd reason, he thought that was, like, a clever way to trick the player into thinking you're about to crash into it. But, like, you can see the outlines on the other blocks clearly, so yeah, that really doesn't work like that. And I believe I tried to explain that to him at the time, but, yeah, he kept it anyway, which, that's fine. It's fine for decoration purposes. But then you get to 49%, and the entire remainder of the level is made by me. Now, despite the awkward gameplay that still persists, I do still like some of the fast-paced stuff that's, like, right after the drop, and even, like, the slow mini-wave that's brief at 59. And, of course, at 71, I put an obligatory Michigan reference because it's technically a triple spike, but it's actually a 5-spike jump. But then at 73%, you enter the space part of the level, which is honestly the only interesting-looking part of the level. It doesn't look amazing, but it's definitely better compared to the rest of the level. I'm not a fan of the gameplay at that part, or even, like, the rest of the level. And then you get to the last jump at 98%, and this is pretty interesting to bring up, because, I mean, normally it's just, whatever jump at the end, and it's not particularly difficult, but the day before I verified the level, I actually failed at this jump and died at 99. And I had never died at 99 at a level before. And I don't even think I knew it was possible to die at 99. And I remember my cousin, who, made the level with me, was there with me when I was, I thought I was about to verify it, and then I died, and, like, it completely threw me off guard. I didn't know that was even possible. I also remember, sometime in early 2018, me and a few others were going to make a buffed and I think extended and redecorated version of the level called Spooky Space Redux. Mostly just because I wanted to touch up the gameplay and I wanted to make something that looked better, but we never really made any actual progress on the level. So it kind of just ended up getting canned. But other than that, that's really all there is to Spooky Space. The next level we will be talking about is Orange Rebirth. This, I believe, was the last level I released in 2017. It is a rebirth of Skitten's first level, obviously called Orange, and I don't really know why, but Peyton and I thought it was an actual good idea at the time. It's really stupid though, and eventually became an inside joke. I'll get more into that in a minute. But Peyton remade all the gameplay throughout the level. I mean, we still copied the original level and just changed some parts. It's more of a rebalance than, most rebirths tend to be more difficult, but this one's more of a rebalance. And we were going to just redecorate individual parts. And I had redecorated my parts that I was assigned, if you will. And then he redecorated the part at 19%, which is like a spider and ball part. But that's the only part he got around to redecorating. I wasn't really sure how progress was going for a while, and because I was a stupid 13-year-old, I thought it would be funny to spam his DMs just saying, "Work on Orange Rebirth." He did think it was funny as far as I'm concerned. I thought it was just funny. I wasn't really trying to, actually pressure him that hard. I just knew that progress was going slow. But the work on Orange Rebirth thing became an inside joke, and it's referenced in the comments, and, I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, he made the part at 19%, which is more black than orange, and then I ended up just asking if he wanted me to finish the rest of it, and so I did, and I redecorated the remainder of it. Now, something interesting about the first part of the level is originally it did look completely different. But I redecorated that part and then sent it to him. And when I uploaded it, though, I set the level to unlisted, though. And at the time, unlisted levels were kind of broken. So for some reason, even if you searched the ID, he couldn't find it. And I, for some reason, deleted it from, like, my saved levels. I don't really remember why I did that, though. I think it was just a weird habit I did at the time. But unfortunately, that version is lost, but then I, just remade the first part, redecorated it. But that's the only part I had to redecorate, fortunately. Despite the lacking color scheme, I do still feel that a lot of the parts of the level are still pretty ugly. And generally, the decoration in a lot of parts is pretty lazy, especially once you get later into the level. Once you get to 50%, you're at this one weird wave part. And the background flashes in sync with the music, but it flashes a lot more than I was originally intending. I think there was just a oversight on my part, but then I never ended up fixing it. I think it just looked better in my head. But this is also where the block deco gets even lazier. This part and the part after it with the dual wave just looks like a layout. And it's because of, that wireframe thing I had in mind when I made Next Matter of Time and Electronic Rush. And I thought this looked really cool, but no, it just looks like a layout. And I'm pretty sure those are actually, not just the regular slopes, I think those are actually the, black blocks with visible lines. I'm not really sure, though, I don't fully remember. And then that dual wave part also has those hands that move back and forth. I have no idea what I was trying to do there. At 71, there's a couple of block structures that are not orange, and that's really the only part where you see another color. But then, 79 onward, you see these faces all over the place that are clearly in the same move group, and they're all just copy and pasted all over the place. Then I don't know why I made the wave part turn into a mini wave at 98. I just thought it would be a cool challenge, and then I thought the logo was really cool. I think it's more so the presentation or the transition into it that I thought was cool, not the logo itself. But this level has kind of just become more of an inside joke than anything. It's just a stupid idea we had, and we did. And, I mean, it's one of my more remembered levels because of, the inside joke that spawned from it. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I remember the day before I verified the level, I actually ended up streaming and verified and uploaded a version of the original level just called Invisible Orange, which it wasn't actually invisible, it was just set to 0.03 opacity since that was the lowest you could go. And I ended up uploading that. But yeah, other than that, that's all there really is about Orange Rebirth. I almost said Invisible Orange, but no, this is Orange Rebirth. The next level we'll be talking about is Grayscale. There's not a whole lot to talk about with this level, but, there's definitely a few things worth mentioning. Firstly, this was made in less than 3 days. I guess that would explain the, boring gameplay, but I also did try to make it, 3 or 4 star gameplay. It is definitely one of my easier levels. There are a few parts that I don't really, understand why I did, having those dash orbs in the one ship part. It just feels out of place for a level of this difficulty. But, other than the boring gameplay and the terrible-ass logo, there's also another fact that I don't believe I've shared before, where the checkerboard background that appears throughout the whole level is an idea that I kind of took inspiration from Peyton's level, Validium. And the checkerboard background would become a aspect of the entire Grayscale series, since I did end up making 2 sequels much later on. But it's super unoptimized in this one, as well as Grayscale 2. Usually what would be done for, object optimization is, you don't have the background cover the whole level. You just have it for, a big part of, where the camera sees, and then there's, move triggers that instantly move it to a, certain interval to where you wouldn't notice it moving when you're actually playing. And I could have and should have done that, and I knew I could have, but for some reason I didn't. And I mean, that's all it really is worth mentioning. Grayscale was a level that was made in a short span. To wrap up part 3, we will talk about Risers 3. This level was only made due to popular demand after Risers 2. And honestly, it's a decent step up from the previous level, as well as just my levels in general at the time. Now, there was an old version of Risers 3 that existed in like the previous summer and fall, but it was really rushed and it was super unbalanced and like insane demon difficulty, which was absolutely out of my skill range at the time. Needless to say, this version did end up getting deleted, and I remade the level from scratch, different song and everything, and that's what the version we ended up seeing was. In this version, you can die at 99% though, and I did so the day before I verified it. Yeah, deja vu, I know. Now, while the level was generally well received within my community, there are some aspects that I personally feel a little disappointed with in terms of how it turned out. There are some parts that were relatively empty, and there's some parts where I just wasn't a fan of the colors, and by this point I was very aware of the colors in my levels being one of the top criticisms they would receive. And these colors are definitely so much better than what I already had before, but that's kind of a low bar, and even then, some of it just doesn't look right to me. Also, at 28%, I don't really know why I did this, but like, I did that like red glow thing that I did in Obliteration for like an orb, except it's a yellow orb and only once, and it just says yellow orb TBH, and like I don't know why I put that and not just like made the orb inside the block. I don't know, maybe I thought it looked weird, or I don't know. The block it's in is very close, so maybe people wouldn't have noticed the yellow orb, but could have just said yellow orb. I have no idea. But it's crazy to me to think that this level would not exist if people didn't keep telling me to make it. I did not want to make a third installment to the series, but people kept asking, you know, what if I was going to make one, and I was like, no, I don't really want to, and then people kept saying I should, and so I did. Back to the whole color thing, though. At 33%, there's a cube part that lasts until the drop, with these puzzle pieces in the background that are changing colors. And in front of the puzzle pieces, there is actually like a dim block in front of them because they were super bright before. The ship part at 84 has a very similar issue, but I didn't add the dim blocks, because it's not as bad there, but it is still a bit of an eyesore. Also, the weird rotating gear thing at 87 just behaves really weirdly. I don't really know what my idea was there. I do think that the gameplay in the level, compared to what I made at the time, is pretty solid, especially the faster-paced parts. I've enjoyed replaying the level, you know, aside from the one gear thing I have just mentioned, and like I said earlier, was a huge step up in comparison. But yeah, there's not really much else to say about Risers 3. And that will wrap up part 3 of this series. Not much to say here for an outro, but thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.